Looks like that's all working. So my name's Josh Osborne. I'm the product manager for the CI tools here at Central Innovation in Auckland. And welcome to today's webinar. This is the recurring every Thursday webinar where we go over questions and answers about various things to do with the CI tools. Essentially what we do is during the week we make a note of any questions that are coming through to the support desk quite frequently, and anything that's been coming up more than usual recently, we try to cover those in this webinar. So today what I'm mostly going to be looking at is the CI Doors+Windows tool, and in particular we're going to be looking at the schedule notes, because that's something we've had a few questions about, how to make those work and what you can do with them and that sort of thing. So I'll start off with a very quick overview of the Doors+Windows tools themselves, and then look at how the scheduling works, and then we'll dive into the schedule notes. But if you have any questions about anything that I show today, or any questions about anything else to do with the CI tools, enter those in the chat panel as we go, and at the end of the session I'll either answer those on air or save those to be covered in next week's version of this webinar. So anything that you can think of about the CI tools or about what we're specifically looking at today, just send those through to the chat panel anytime, and I'll have a look at the end. I'm going to be using ArchiCAD 24 today, but all of what I do is going to work the same way in ArchiCAD 23 and very similarly in ArchiCAD 22 and older. So pretty much everything that you'll see today should apply to most currently actively used ArchiCAD versions. But if you are on an older version, or you just can't find something in the version that you have, do just let me know, and I should be able to figure out how to get to the same things in older versions. But yeah, thank you, and let's get underway. So the CI tool Doors+Windows tool is available to all New Zealand customers, and in Australia it's available to select customers who are paying their select annually. And it's also part of the CI Tools subscription, so if you are outside of Australia or New Zealand, you can include that in any of the CI Tools packages. The basic package lets you choose any two tools you want, so you can choose Doors+Windows for that, and the Pro and Premium packages both also contain the Doors+Windows tool. So it's one of our most popular tools. And just very quickly, the way that the tool works, the sort of design philosophy for the entry point to these tools is to allow you to have the flexibility to make whatever you need to make, to be able to customize it to a higher degree than a lot of other library parts that you might come across for Doors+Windows, and to also allow you to make changes to your Doors+Windows at any step in the process. So the idea being that you can just place a door or window at the very beginning of your process, make sure that the size is right, and you don't care about anything else. If you've used the ArchiCAD built-in doors or windows, you probably know that one of the first things that you need to do with them is when you're about to draw a door or window, you have to decide what kind of window or door you want. So if you want to have a double window or a triple window, or if you want to have various bits around the place like this, multiple sashes, if you want side lights, you need to choose the object that you want to go with right off the bat before you can do anything at all. So that's one of the things that we tried to go around using our tool, in that there's only a single object that you have to choose from. So if you're going to do a window, you use the window tool. If you're going to use a door, there's actually two doors, but it's pretty easy to choose the difference between them, and I'll show you those in a second. But the idea here is that you can place this window now, set the size to what you need the size to be, and then away you go. You can keep working on the rest of your model, and then when you come back in a further phase of the design process, you can then add the extra detail in that you want. You can modify the frame sizes, or you can modify the way that the glazing panels are set out, or the surfaces that are used, or anything like that. There's a lot of control over what you can, set in the windows and doors. You can see there's a quite a large number of settings in here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but for the window, the main one that you probably will want to get to early on will be to look at the glazing panel layout, and that lets you click and manipulate the way that you want the window to work. So you can select the panel that you want to edit and then choose what kind of panel that you want it to be as you go. And you can also use the controls here to set the width and to set a repeating grid if you want one of those as well. So you can see at the moment I've got a fixed pane over on the left and an awning on the right, and the awning is set to be a grid of 3, which is why it looks like that. The door works in much the same way. When that comes up. So we've got, there's actually 3 objects for this. The garage door, which obviously is just for garage doors, the CI Tools door, which is the main door object, and then the door exterior object. And essentially the door exterior object is actually just a renamed version of the window tool. So this is for you to use in cases where the door that you want to draw is actually more like a window than a door. So branch sliders are the main use for this one. So this behaves like a window, but it will present itself to ArchiCAD as a door. So if you're using the ArchiCAD scheduler, or if you are trying to find and select things by their element type or something, it's going to call itself a door, even though it's using our window tool underneath. But the door tool, door object itself in here is this one here, mostly for doing internal doors and regular framed, I guess, doors rather than big units with lots of glazing in them and that sort of thing. And the settings for this are very similar as well. There's slightly less range of settings for this one because you don't need to worry about laying out the glazing panels so much, but there's still controls for the side lights and the frames, what the door leaf should look like, and all that sort of thing. So you can go through and set them to pretty much whatever you want them to look like, and then away you go. The other main feature of the Doors and Windows tool is the scheduler. We have our own scheduler built into the tool. And the way that works is from the CI Tools menu, going down to Doors and Windows and go to the Schedule Manager. And this will let you set up as many schedules as you want to, which let you have control over what you show in them and what elements you show in them, and then on each element what pieces you show on that. So you can choose how it's labeled, how it's dimensioned, the size of a layout sheet that the schedule should fit into, and this is the criteria to choose which specific elements you want to show in the schedule. So at the moment I've got it just set to show doors and windows. I'm filtering it to show all renovation status types, and I'm not collating matching items at all, but you can use all of these other settings here to further filter down to what you need to. You can filter by element ID and say that you want to schedule only the things that start with the letter D. Say if that's what your ID scheme uses for doors, you could set it to only show things on a certain layer combination, only things on a certain story, or only things on a certain renovation status. So there should be plenty of control there to allow you to show exactly what you want in your schedule. And it'll generate a schedule that is fit onto a layout of the size which you set, so that then you can just place this worksheet that the schedule is generated in directly onto a sheet, and you'll be ready to go. It'll already be sized to fit. So the main thing I want to look at today is the schedule notes, which are part of our scheduling tool. And you can see I actually have some already on this door and window schedule. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm just going to bring up the schedule notes palette, because when you're working with the door and window schedule notes, this is the easiest way to work with them. And that will open up a little palette that you can dock to the side or just leave floating somewhere. If you've used our Keynotes tool, you might recognize this one. It looks quite similar. It's intended to look quite similar so that if you know one tool, you can easily pick up the other. And the concepts underneath how it works are quite similar as well. So just to break down the interface here, at the top we've got a setting for custom notes. So this is to allow you to just enter some free text as you go, rather than creating a new note in your notes database, which we'll look at shortly. The next section lets you choose managed notes, which are the ones that are part of your database, and you can see that there are currently 4 categories here: accessories, finishes, glazing, and material. Those aren't preset or anything, those are just 4 categories that I created, and then each of them have some notes in them that you can see there as well. And then below that we've got schedule label notes, which will show us what actual notes we are working with at a given time. As we go through. If you're familiar with the Keynotes tool, this is the thing that would show you the currently selected label contents, whereas up here would show you the current set of keynotes that you have. So the first thing you'll want to do is actually set up some schedule notes, and you can do that by clicking this button here, or by going to your CI Tools menu, Doors and Windows, Schedule Notes Manager. And again, this is similar to the Keynote Manager tool. It lets you import and export sets of notes and manually create them as well. So you can see at the bottom here, we've got these import and export buttons that'll let you, once you're happy with your set of notes, you can export these and then re-import them into different projects as you go, or into your template, or anything like that that you would need them to be in. And then we've got controls over how we actually work with the notes that are there. So once I select any of these, either the category itself or the note, you'll see that we get a little edit box here, which lets us change what it says. We can delete notes using delete, obviously, and new note and new category buttons down at the bottom here will let us create those 2 types of things. So we can just hit new category. We can give it the name test category for now. And then we'll create a new note, and we'll call that test note. And you can see it's gone into the top by default, so we're going to click on that and then just drag it down into, onto, so that it highlights blue, the test category, and let go of the left mouse button there, and that will drop it into that category. So you can see if I contract that in now, you can see it disappears. So it's part of that category as well, but you can have notes like it was when I first placed it that aren't in a category at all. They can just be, you don't even need to use categories at all if you don't want to. You could just have a completely flat set of notes for everything. This just makes them a little bit tidier and easier to work with as you are assigning them to things. But if you have a smaller amount of them, then it might make sense to just throw them all in there. And so, yeah, as I say, once you have together a good selection of the notes that you might want to use in your projects, probably be a good idea to export those using this button here, and then you'll be able to import that note database into any other projects that you're using. So you could store it somewhere that everyone can access, and just let people know that you can import them that way, or you could import them directly into your template so that everyone will be able to access those when they create new projects as well. So that's the Schedule Notes Manager. And once you hit OK on that, it'll close this, and we'll be back to our palette, and you'll see the new test category and test note have been added there. So now that we have a database of notes in our project, the next thing that you want to actually do is apply them to your Doors and Windows. And there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can do this directly while you're working in the schedule, or you can apply them to the Doors and Windows themselves back in your model. So let's have a look at them in the model. So if I open up a view here, I can go through and select one of my windows, say, and I'll open the settings, and you'll see at the bottom of the interface, might be something that you have not noticed before, but there'll be a CI Tools Schedule Notes section here. This will appear for all Doors and Windows. And if you open that out, this lets you edit the schedule notes on this window in this case. So at the top we have the custom notes section, so that'll allow us to type in anything we want. It's a free text area, so you can just type in anything, and that will be a custom piece of a note just on this window. So it's not becoming part of your database at all. It won't be reusable as a note on any of your other notes. So this is just for one-off stuff as you go. Whereas if you want to add something from the database, you can just click the Add button below, choose the note that you want to add, and hit OK. And that will bring that note in. So I'll hit OK on that. It makes no changes to the model view, obviously, because it shouldn't do. And we can see that that was window ID 107. So if I go back to my Door and Window schedule and update it, it's just going to take a second. My laptop's on battery power, so it takes a second. Yes, I would like to. And what that's going to do is it's going to regenerate the schedule, and we should see the note that we just added to that 107, I think it was, our window. That should appear in this schedule as soon as it's finished generating. And so that's the method of adding them through your model and having them come through to the schedule. So let's see if we can find 107. Here it is. So you can see 107 now has a note attached underneath its ID, and it says finishes, that's the name of the group, and then finish number 2 satin, that is the note specifically that we attached to that window. And if I select that now, not sure what happened there. If I select that, and in my schedule notes panel I turn on live edit, you'll see that my schedule label notes now has something in it. It's showing me what is in the thing I currently have selected. So you can see finish number 2 satin there. And now if I want to, I can go through and edit the notes on my Doors and Windows from this end as well if I want. So if I go to 108, you can see there's currently no notes in it. I'm going to add accessory 1, double glazing, and finish number 5 gloss to it. So the way I'm adding those is just by double clicking them as they go. And you can see that as I do each one, it automatically adds it in the schedule that we can see over here. Now, one trick that you need to be aware of is that at the moment all we're doing is we are making these changes on the schedule itself. We're not making the changes to the actual window. So you can see when we're in a schedule, we're not directly working on one of the windows. So what we need to do before we update this drawing is that we need to send those note changes back to the model so that the actual window itself contains those notes. So you only need to do this when you're working in the schedule system. If you're working on the floor plan or in 3D or something, the changes you make are directly being made to the model. So you can just go through and do whatever you need to. But if you're making changes in the schedule view, you need to be sure that you send them back to the model before you update. Otherwise, they'll be wiped when this schedule is updated, because it's a one-off change just to this piece of schedule, and as soon as this piece of schedule refreshes, it will be gone. So the way that we can send those back is by hitting, okay, excuse me just a second. Oh, that's right. The way that we do that is by hitting this button up the top here. Just click on that, and it will think for a few seconds. You'll see the cursor flash, and that's done now. So if we look at 108, I go back to my floor plan and find 108. Here it is over here. If I select that, you'll see that this model element now has those label schedule notes showing in the palette there. And if I go into the settings, you can see them there as well. So that has embedded those notes into that window now. And now we can safely update our schedule, and those notes will stay. If you go through and add notes to one of the schedule elements and don't send them back to the model, it will just wipe them as soon as you update. So for instance, if I add test note to this one and then update my schedule, it will disappear. So just make sure that you do that when you're doing any work on your schedule notes. Do that before you update, or just make sure that before you do an update anytime, you go through and just do a send back to model on everything. So you can see that those are gone now. There may be instances where you want them only to be changes on this instance of the schedule and then disappear. You can do that as well, obviously, as well. And the same for custom notes here as well. If you enter custom notes on anything that you're working on, you'll need to send those back to the model as well. Now, the other part of the interface that may come in useful while you're working with schedule notes is you notice that we turned on the live edit mode before, which is what we're doing. Essentially, the live edit mode makes changes and shows you data in real time. So when I select this window, you immediately see the schedule label notes. When I change away, it clears. And when I change to this one, you see those changes. But what you can do is you can turn off live edit mode. And we're now in, I guess, manual edit mode. And now if I select something, you'll see that there's nothing showing up here. And the reason for that is because it doesn't pick up the settings automatically. It only does things when you tell it to. So this can be quite useful if you are going through and setting, say, a bunch of the same notes to certain batches of windows and doors. You can selectively pick up and inject notes between elements. So if I select this one here, and hit the eyedropper here, you'll see it picks up the note that I've got there. And now if I deselect that window, the notes are still showing. So it's kind of remembered them. It's kind of like the clipboard almost. We've sort of copied and pasted this note. And now I can select a different window and inject into it, and that immediately adds the note there. I can also select this window and inject there. So that you can see how this would be useful if you have, say, 5 different windows that you want to apply changes to. One of them already has the changes that you want. Just pick up the rest and go and inject them where they need to be. And then you can also manually edit what we have here. So let's just quickly live edit one of these. So it has a couple of things in it. Okay, so we've got 3 elements there. Let's go back to manual mode. And what we'll do is we will pick up these. Actually, no, sorry, I need to put something different in. Apologies. I will add just test note to this one. Then I'll pick up test note from this element here. I'll select one of my other schedule items and I'll hit the plus button. And that should add, there we go. That should add just the thing that you had selected. So rather than what I did the first time around, which was that I injected them and it overwrote the set of notes that were there, you can also sort of cumulatively build up a collection of notes on a window using this method. So you could now select all of these ones and go over here and add them that way. So you can see you can go one by one, or you can go in one big bunch. So this is useful for if you've sort of gotten further along in the project, you haven't attached any notes at all, and you want to do a sort of a bulk job of everything, go through and do everything. And then once you have your notes set up the way that you want, remember to hit this button here to send them all back to your model. Sorry, so deselect and hit the send all back button, or you can select all and send them back that way. Either way will do the same thing. And that will store those changes inside your model data. So that's the schedule notes inside the Doors and Windows tool. Hopefully that that explains how that works. If any of you have any questions, enter them now. And if I have time, I'll answer them online today. We've got a couple more minutes before we finish up. Otherwise, I'll cover any sort of larger topics in next week's or a future webinar. Let me just have a look and see what we've got. So the CI tools for ArchiCAD 25, as you should have received an email a couple of weeks ago letting you know that the V25 tools aren't available yet. We're still working on them. We are currently running them through testing and everything like that. We are planning to release them at the same time as the ArchiCAD 25 first update comes out. At this stage, we are still in the process of testing the tool, so I can't give an exact ETA on that, but sometime in probably the next 2 weeks or so, we will be able to announce when we'll be releasing them, and we'll run some launch webinars and that sort of thing. There are quite a few new features. We have added a bunch of much requested enhancements to mainly to the cabinet tool. That one's had a lot of changes on it, and there's some updates to the coverings tool as well, specifically roof coverings, in the way that it deals with how roofs join onto each other, how edges work, and that sort of thing. Been quite a few changes in there. And obviously all the tools work. In 25 will be the other feature. That's the thing that we're still working on getting going. And we'll also be releasing a handful of new select objects as well. So yeah, once we have a date for that, which will be sometime probably in the next 2 weeks, I would say we'll be announcing what we'll be doing there. We'll be running some webinars so that you can see what the new features are, and we'll be rolling them out to all of the people who have access to the tools. So yeah, there'll be new features, and that's roughly when we'll know when they'll be coming out. But at this stage, anything that I could tell you about when we're specifically targeting to release them would probably just end up being either early or later than it actually would be, so not much use to you just making something up. So that's all I can say at this stage. But yeah, hopefully by that time, during this exact webinar on the week of whenever it is, I should be able to let you guys know at that time as well. All right, how do I add? Yeah, so someone asking, how do I add annotations to the windows and doors so that they're attached to the windows and not lost when the schedule is refreshed? So that is this button here that I was talking about before. Make sure that you do that whenever you make those annotation changes. Because yes, as you have noticed by the sounds of things, if you make changes in your schedule and don't send them back to the model using this button, they will be lost as soon as you update your schedule. That's right, and yes, if you have any additional 2D components that you have drawn on top of your schedule, when you update the schedule, those will need to be moved back to where they should be, yeah. So one of the things that might explain why some of these things happened is that when you update a schedule in the Doors+Windows schedule thing, what's actually happening is that it essentially deletes the entire schedule and then places it again. That's why things sometimes move around, especially if you've added new windows and doors into the schedule that weren't there before. Because it's removing the entire schedule and then creating it again from scratch, you may sometimes lose sort of the anchor points for that sort of thing. And that's also why the schedule notes disappear if they had not saved to the model. That's why that happens. But yes, if you are drawing extra 2D data over your schedules, the best time to do that would be, I would say, as late as possible, because if you do that, you will need to move them around. Well, you may need to move them around when you do an update. So when you do update your schedules, if you have been doing 2D work, just make sure that you go through and check that before you move straight to publishing or something like that. Yep. Okay, we've got a question here. I'm having trouble making split panes with one fixed center, then split to opposite side. Not quite sure what you mean by that, sorry. Making split panes with one fixed center, then split to opposite side. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit more? And we've also got another question saying, how about using a window builder for a door or vice versa? So yeah, so the thing to do for that, obviously you can do that anytime. You could just use the window tool to make a door. You could just use the door tool to make a window. That is specifically what the exterior door object was created for. So up until we made that as a separate object, generally when people wanted to make a ranch slider or something, we would just say model that using a window. The problem with doing that is then when you say export to IFC, or when you create a schedule using the interactive scheduler, or if you use find and select or something, those ranch slider doors will be calling themselves windows, which is not ideal, obviously. So that's why we created this one as essentially a copy of the window tool inside the door, so that you can have something that looks like a window but is to all ArchiCAD can tell a door. So you can use them that way if that's what you need to do. If you need to use a door to draw up a window, that's not really something that I've come across very often, because the windows essentially can have doors inside them. So one of the panel types for the windows is a door. You should be able to get most of what you would need to do with something that's a door or like a door inside of a window. But if you can't, then yeah, you could either just draw it as a door, but again, you're going to have the issue where ArchiCAD thinks it's a door. The only other option really would be if you could talk to us about specifically what you're trying to achieve with it. We can either figure out a way to make that work using the window tool, or we can figure out some way to do a similar thing with the window. We could make a door object for the window that lets you do that kind of the reverse thing of what you were talking about. Yeah. But using this door setting in your window, you get most of the controls that are in the door tool anyway. So you should be able to produce anything in here that you would want to produce using the door tool anyway. But yeah, if you do have a specific thing that you're trying to achieve with that you can't get it to do, I would be interested to hear about it. Obviously, if there is a reason that having the door tool in here would work, then we can go ahead and do that. But yeah, I haven't really come across any instances where you can't just use the door inside a glazing panel. That should do the trick in most. All right, how do I create a double door? So double door, I would just, when it comes up, I would just go in into my door tool. Dimensions look good. I'm not going to change the shape. So go to the door type here. Let's go with single swings on this. So at the moment we've got one leaf on the left at 800, and we've got 0 leaves on the right. So I'm just going to change that to 1. And then if I place that, that should give you a double door. Obviously you can change the way that the leaves work and make them double swing or something like that if you want to, but at the base level, that's a double door. Can you add a cat door in a door? That's a very good question. We don't currently have a way to add a cat door into a door. No, at the moment, you might be able to make something that looks like a cat door using the kick plate option. So if you added a kick plate to the interior and exterior and set up the dimensions to be roughly the size of the cat door, it would at least look like something like that. And then you could add a schedule note saying cat door, blah, blah, blah. But yes, we don't actually have an option to add a cat door. So I will add that to our request list. That's a good question. And there was another one. So, okay, so 2 awnings on each side with 1 fixed pane in the center. So using a window, let's just deselect that. So let's just go into where's the glazing? Sorry, my webinar thing's in the way. Glazing panel layout. So at the moment we've got our fixed and our awning. So let's keep the awning. I'm going to remove the 600 here because I don't want, I want these all 3 to be even, because you said you wanted one of them to be in the center. So that's set to 0, and This one here is also fit to available width. So I'm going to hit the plus button to copy this one. So I now have 3 panels, and they are all set to fill the equal width. And now I can just set this one here to an awning. And this one from memory was set to a grid of 3, so I'll change that to 1. So now we have 3 panels, all equal widths, one fixed one in the center, and an awning on either side. So that should look, yeah, there we go. Awning on each side and a fixed panel in the center. Is that what you were asking about there? Yeah, I think if that's not quite what you were looking for, just get in touch after this webinar. Just contact the support desk by emailing nz.support@centralinnovation.com, and that will either the support person there will answer you, or they will contact me and I can answer you if that isn't quite it. Oh, here we go. Splitting the 2 sides to 2 awnings. I think I'll catch up with you later on that one, because I'm not quite sure which part of it it's not doing. So, like, you can select one of these and then hit plus, and it'll create 2, or you could remove one of them and set it to be a grid of 2. So that will do. Whoops. That'll do that, if that's what you wanted. I'll follow up with you later, because I'm not quite catching specifically what you want to do, but yeah, I think we definitely should be able to do what you're asking. I'll just need to catch up with you to figure out exactly what. How to create a pocket door. A pocket door is just one of the door types in the door tool. So let's go grab this double one we have here, and we'll change it to be a pocket door. There's a couple of different slider types available. So at the moment, we've got a single swing on each side, but a pocket slider is available, so just select that. You can choose how much you want it to overlap with the various parts. And then if we hit OK, our double door will change to double sliders. You can see at the moment they're fully closed, but you can see the pocket has been, whoops, the pocket has been cut out here and here. And you can set how much you want it to be open using the display options there. All right, well, thanks everyone. I think that's all of the questions for now. This is all the time we have today anyway. But if you do have any further questions to follow up on, please do send those through to the support desk, nz.support@centralinnovation.com. It sounds like maybe people are interested in finding out specifically how to create certain types of doors and windows, maybe common doors and windows that you want to use. If that is something that you are interested in, I could look at doing that next week. Maybe if you just send through a list of the types of windows and doors you want to be able to create, I could go through and just show you how to make a bunch of different types of windows and doors. That might be helpful. But yeah, let me know by emailing the support desk there. Just say, hey, I attended the webinar, just wanted to know about X, and I know I can go through that. But hopefully this has been helpful, and don't forget to use the support desk for questions. And if you are outside of NZ and you're not a annual select customer in Australia, or if you're outside of Australia and New Zealand, you can get a trial of the Doors and Windows tool anytime just by going to MyCI and heading to the CI Tools section there. If you don't already have a CI Tools, a MyCI account, go to myci.centralinnovation.com/free trial, and that'll let you create an account, and then you can get started with the tools. But thanks for coming, everyone, and I hope to catch you next time.